Chapter 81 Negotiation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Bai Fei knew very well in his heart that if he didn't do this, then this inner core disciple would definitely not let go, because what the disciples of the inner core hall said are indeed rules, but how to profit from the rules depends on the individual's handling methods. Bai Fei first used Meng Yueheng's elder token to intimidate him, and then offered some benefits. So the disciple of the Colonel Hall could only accept it with a blind eye. After all, if he resists again, it will appear that he is too ignorant. There is indeed a group assessment task for 4 people, but your cultivation requirements. The disciples of the Colonel Palace really found an assessment task at this moment, and then they started talking about it. Just halfway through speaking, his eyes fell on Bai Fei, and he immediately said, "There are 3 people who meet the requirements." The words of the disciples of the Colonel Hall made Wang Tianfang ask hurriedly, "Who does not meet the requirements?" But when the disciples of the Colonel Hall heard this, they suddenly felt very speechless. He was already looking at Bai Fei. Of course it was Bai Fei. Why would he ask such an idiot question? When Huang Jie saw this, he immediately said, "Junior brother, does the cultivation level specified above require you to reach the spirit gathering realm?" That the disciples of the Colonel Hall nodded. "You have to reach the middle stage of the spirit gathering realm. But you should know about junior brother Bai Fei's feats, right? Although he is in the body refining realm now, his strength is not much different from that in the spirit gathering realm, so do you think you can be accommodating?" Huang Jie said again. Wang Tianfang also said quickly, "Yes. He is now the #1 genius in the outer sect. Do you really think it is not good to use his cultivation to restrict junior brother Bai Fei from participating in assessment tasks?" Lu Dafu also nodded in agreement. "I think so." After hearing this, the disciples of the Colonel Hall thought about it and felt that there was no need to impose any restrictions in this area, not to mention that he had just received benefits from others. So, the disciples of the Colonel Hall nodded and said, "Okay, if you are willing to do this assessment task together, then sign the task order." With that said, the disciple of the Colonel Hall took out the jade slip for this assessment task and placed it on the table. After hearing the words of the disciples of the inner core hall, the 4 of them immediately looked at each other. Huang Jie immediately circulated his spiritual energy and left his name on the jade slip. When Bai Fei saw this, he did not hesitate and used his own spiritual energy to carve his name. Wang Tianfang and Lu Dafu looked at each other, and the former asked, in a low voice, "What should we do now? What else can I do?" "Of course I did it." Lu Dafu shrugged his shoulders and said calmly, "With our outer sect's first and second arrogant people here, what else do we have to worry about?" "That's right." So, Wang Tianfang and Lu Dafu used spiritual energy to carve their names on the mission jade slip together. Seeing this, the disciples of the Colonel Hall broke the jade slip in half, then handed the other piece to Bai Fei, and said loudly, "The details of the mission are all above, just complete it according to the above." "I understand, thank you senior brother." After hearing this, Bai Fei took over the jade slip and thanked him. The 4 people walked out of the Colonel Hall, and then Bai Fei looked at the other 3 people and said loudly, "Senior sister and brother, we have to find a place to discuss it, right?" "I know a place, come with me." Lu Dafu immediately spoke out. Soon, they arrived at a stone pavilion halfway up the mountain. There is no one around here, which is convenient for them to discuss. After the 4 of them sat down, Bai Fei took out the mission jade slip, placed it on the table, and said at the same time, "Everyone, please take a look at the mission content first." Hearing Bai Fei's words, they were not polite and used their spiritual senses to check the assessment tasks given on the jade slips. After all, the 4 of them were not familiar with each other, so they did not have a strong sense of trust. Naturally, they had to personally check the contents of the assessment tasks to feel at ease. When Huang Jie and the others took turns checking the jade slips, Bai Fei also said at the same time, "This assessment task requires us to help the city lord's palace eliminate a group of vicious bandits. The bandits have been rampant recently, and there have been many ambushes near Muyin City, resulting in a lot of losses in Muyin City. Although the city lord's mansion sent people to encircle and suppress them, these bandits were too flexible and escaped every time. And the city lord's mansion had other things to do, so we could only entrust our blood sword sect to deal with them. But this matter is quite thankless. After all, those criminals are too good at hiding, and there is also a Danyuan realm master. This also makes it difficult for the city lord's mansion to allocate more energy to deal with it. At this time, Huang Jie and the others had already read the mission content in the jade slips. Just as Bai Fei said, the assessment task this time is to cooperate with the city lord's mansion to deal with a group of vicious bandits. Although the information given on the jade slip is about a Danyuan realm master, it was already a month ago, so there is a high possibility that the information will be inaccurate. We must first go to the city lord's mansion to get the latest information before we can make a plan. After Huang Jie heard Bai Fei's words, she expressed her thoughts. Bai Fei nodded and said, I think so too. At the same time, when Xueer's delicate and pretty face also appeared in his mind, he remembered that when Xueer seemed to be the rich daughter of the city lord's palace. He wondered if he would meet her. If this is the case, let's go without further delay, shall we? Huang Jie said softly. Wait a minute. Lu Dafu said at this moment, who will lead the assessment task this time? Lu Dafu's words stunned everyone else present. Lu Dafu said again, anyway, this task is related to whether we can be promoted to inner disciples, and it is also related to our lives, and this matter obviously requires cooperation with the city lord's mansion. In this way there will inevitably be diplomatic missions, so who do you think should be better? Huang Jie said calmly, I recommend junior brother Bai Fei. I think he handled it very well just now. Lu Dafu also nodded, indeed, without junior brother Bai Fei, we would not have received this assessment task. After saying this, Huang Jie and Lu Dafu both looked at Wang Tianfang. When Wang Tianfang saw this, he was confused. What do you want me to do? I have no objection. Chapter 82 6th Floor. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hearing what Wang Tianfang said, Lu Dafu smiled faintly and said, you actually agreed. I thought you would rush to be the team leader. You think I am you? Wang Tianfang rolled his eyes unhappily, and I think junior brother Bai Fei is very powerful. There is no problem for him to be the person in charge of this task. Huang Jie looked at Bai Fei and asked softly, junior brother Bai Fei, what do you think? Bai Fei heard this without any pretense, just smiled and said, since my senior brothers and sisters trust me so much, then I am willing. Seeing Bai Fei agreed, the three of them were relieved. Huang Jie asked again, what are our plans next? After Huang Jie's voice fell, Wang Tianfang and Lu Dafu also looked at Bai Fei, waiting for his next words. Bai Fei pondered for a moment, then said, first, we have to go to the city lord's mansion and ask about the specific situation of these vicious bandits. So before that, let's go back and make some preparations. We will gather at the mountain gate at 1 p.m. tomorrow and go to the city lord's mansion together. After all, if you want to deal with that group of vicious bandits, you must be fully prepared. Hearing Bai Fei's words, Huang Jie and the other two also felt that it made sense, so they all nodded. No problem, just do as you say. Gather at the mountain gate at 1 p.m. tomorrow. Okay. So, Bai Fei parted ways with Huang Jie and the other two. Bai Fei returned to the cave and bumped into Meng Yueheng, who came out of it. Master. Seeing Meng Yueheng appear, Bai Fei shouted softly. Why are you back? Seeing Bai Fei appear, a look of surprise appeared on Meng Yueheng's old face, and then he asked out loud. It's like this. The assessment task I received is a team task. So, Bai Fei told Meng Yueheng what happened in the core hall just now, and at the same time told him his plan. Meng Yueheng suddenly realized it when he heard this, and nodded immediately, with approval in his eyes. You did a good job. After all, if you rashly go to the city lord's mansion now without adequate preparation, then it will be a bad thing for you. Your idea is very good. It's best to be cautious. After all, since this is a team assessment task, it is obviously much more difficult. Bai Fei nodded, I think so too. Is there anything I can do for you? Looking at Bai Fei, Meng Yueheng asked. Bai Fei was slightly startled, and was a little surprised that Meng Yueheng would say such words to him. At that moment, Bai Fei had doubts about whether this old man had any conspiracy, but Bai Fei reacted quickly, shook his head and said to Meng Yueheng, not for now, I can still handle it. Is there really nothing I can help you with? Meng Yueheng frowned and asked. Really not. Bai Fei answered seriously. Meng Yueheng was speechless. It was rare for him to be in a good mood. He wanted to be a good master who cared for his apprentice, but Bai Fei didn't give him a chance. Humph. If not, forget it. At that moment, Meng Yueheng said lightly, in that case, then you should make good preparations. I will go to guard the tower. Farewell, master. Bai Fei bowed immediately after hearing this, and bowed and sent Meng Yueheng away. When Meng Yueheng's figure went away, Bai Fei couldn't help but curl his lips and said to himself, why is this old man so kind today? There must be some conspiracy. I won't be fooled. After that, Bai Fei turned around and walked into the cave. He did not return to his room, but went to another cave in the cave. This cave is extremely spacious, and there are array patterns interwoven on the wall. This is a place dedicated to practicing martial arts. In the past, when Meng Yueheng was practicing martial arts, he would conduct experiments and tests here, but later, Meng Yueheng had become a strong man, so he basically didn't need this training room. This is just right for Bai Fei to use. At this moment, Bai Fei's heart moved, and a light burst out on his palm, and a jade slip emerged. Then, Bai Fei's consciousness sank into the jade slip. This jade slip was the one given to him by Meng Yueheng. It contains all the skills of Blood Sword 10,000 secrets and 3 4th-grade Earth-level martial arts. Among them, the 3 4th-grade Earth-level martial arts are the boxing method Barbarian Fist, the body method Lingyun Step and the sword method Splitting Sky Sword. Bai Fei considered again and again, and first practiced the 6th level of Blood Sword 10,000 secrets. After all, Bai Fei has now cultivated the Blood Sword 10,000 techniques to the 5th level of perfection, and he only needs to have subsequent exercises to reach a higher level. At this moment, Bai Fei sat cross-legged on a stone platform, and according to the contents recorded on the jade slip, he began to practice the Blood Sword 10,000 techniques. At that moment, the spiritual energy of the surrounding heaven and earth began to swarm in, like a flood, and all poured into Bai Fei's body. After a while, Bai Fei's momentum suddenly burst out. Then, behind him, there was a vast sea of blood looming. In the sea of blood, there were even waves of sword sounds trembling. This is the symbol of the 6th level of Blood Sword 10,000 secrets, the spiritual Blood Sword Sea. Of course, Bai Fei has just broken through to the 6th level, so the spiritual Blood Sword Sea is still very illusory. When the subsequent practice is more profound, the spiritual Blood Sword Sea will become more solid. At that time, Bai Fei's strength will be further improved. After breaking through to the 6th level of Blood Sword 10,000 secrets, Bai Fei chose to stop. After all, time is limited. He can't spend a day and a night practicing Blood Sword 10,000 secrets. After Bai Fei pondered for a while, he began to practice the Lingyun Step body technique. This time he is facing a group of fierce bandits, who are real desperate criminals, so the battle must be very fierce and cruel. The opponent is likely to do everything to survive. Therefore, having a body technique can at least make his life more secure. If there is still time, perhaps the other 2 martial arts can also be practiced well. Thus, as Bai Fei practiced with great concentration, time passed by bit. 1 day and 1 night passed in a flash. The next morning, the sky was gray. Chapter 83 City Lord's Mansion. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The sun had not yet risen, and at the mountain gate of the Blood Sword Sect, several figures were moving. When Bai Fei arrived at the mountain gate, he found a beautiful figure waiting there. He looked closely and found that it was Huang Jie. Seeing Huang Jie appear, Bai Fei's face was surprised. Sister Jie. Huang Jie looked over and nodded slightly to Bai Fei, who was flying over, and replied lightly, Junior brother Bai Fei. Sister Jie, why are you here so early? Looking at Huang Jie, Bai Fei asked. I have the habit of arriving early. Huang Jie just explained casually. Bai Fei heard this and said no more. For a moment, the atmosphere between the two became particularly awkward. After a while, Wang Tianfang and Lu Dafu also rushed here. When they appeared, they saw Bai Fei and Huang Jie, which surprised them very much. Sister Jie. Junior brother Bai Fei. Why are you here so early? It's not that they are early, it's that you are too late, okay? Lu Dafu rolled his eyes at Wang Tianfang and complained. What do you mean I am too late? You are saying it as if you are not late. Wang Tianfang also retorted angrily. Damn it, it's you who are dawdling, otherwise, how could I be late? You still have the nerve to yell. Lu Dafu heard this and glared at Wang Tianfang and said angrily, not to mention, the quarrel between the two made the whole atmosphere more harmonious. Bai Fei suddenly found that with the addition of these two people, at least the atmosphere would not be too depressed. It was because these two guys were really a pair of live treasures. At that moment, Bai Fei smiled slightly and said, since everyone is here, let's go to the city lord's mansion. Let's go. So, Bai Fei and the others left the Blood Sword Sect and headed for the city lord's mansion. The Blood Sword Sect is located in the southern area of Muyin City, and the city lord's mansion is located in the central area, so there is still some distance. After all, Muyin City is one of the few large cities in the Dajing dynasty, covering a very large area, so it has created the prosperity here. When they came to the central area of Muyin City, the streets had become extremely prosperous and lively. This was Bai Fei's first time to Muyin City. Looking at the busy and bustling city in front of him, he was a little sighing in his heart. After all, it is really rare to be able to see this scene of living and working in peace and contentment in such a dangerous fantasy world. At least it can be shown that the city lord of Muyin City is really governing this city with heart. The city lord's mansion is not very glorious, but the silver-armored guards stationed in a row can make people feel a very terrible breath, which makes people shudder, especially these silver-armored guards. Each of them is above the 9th level of the body refining realm, which shows how strict the guards of the city lord's mansion are. Bai Fei and the other two walked directly towards the city lord's mansion. Bai Fei looked at one of the silver-armored guards and said to him, "Brother, we are disciples of the Blood Sword Sect. This time we are ordered to assist the city lord's mansion in exterminating the bandits." Hearing Bai Fei's words, the silver-armored guard glanced at him, then frowned slightly, with suspicion in his eyes, and then asked coldly, "Do you have any proof?" Bai Fei was slightly startled when he heard this, wondering what proof is. But soon, Bai Fei thought of the jade slip given to him by the inner core hall disciple. He took the jade slip out of the storage ring and handed it to the silver-armored guard, saying, "Is this the proof you are talking about?" The silver-armored guard stretched out his palm, took the jade slip, and after sensing it with his spiritual consciousness, he nodded gently, returned the jade slip to Bai Fei, and said at the same time, "Follow me." Hearing the words of the silver-armored guard, Bai Fei looked at Huang Ye and others, and signaled them to follow with his eyes. The silver-armored guards led Bai Fei and his companions into the city lord's mansion. This was Bai Fei's first time entering the city lord's mansion. He originally thought that the city lord's mansion was a luxurious mansion with beautiful scenes such as a back garden, rockery, flower beds, fountains, etc. As a result, when Bai Fei entered, he found that the structure of the city lord's mansion was completely different from what he imagined, because it was exactly like a military camp. There were silver-armored guards patrolling everywhere, and everyone's eyes were very cold and serious, as if their nerves were tense, as if they were facing something important. This made Bai Fei's heart full of doubts. He didn't understand why the city lord's mansion looked like it was facing a great enemy. Bai Fei didn't think that those fierce bandits would bring such a big threat to the city lord's mansion, but if it wasn't those fierce bandits, then what would it be? Of course, although Bai Fei was curious, he wouldn't be curious enough to ask. After all, the city lord's mansion would never announce such a thing, and knowing too much is not a good thing. After a while, the silver-armored guard who led the way brought them to a room. The silver-armored guard said to Bai Fei and the others, "You wait here for a while. I will go to see the adults to discuss the matter of the bandits with you." Bai Fei nodded slightly, "Thank you." After the silver-armored guards left, Wang Tianfang's eyes turned slightly, and he asked curiously, "Hey, did you see it?" Those silver-armored guards all looked very solemn, as if something big happened. "What do you think it was? Why are you so curious? Don't you know that curiosity kills the cat?" As soon as Wang Tianfang finished speaking, Lu Dafu said unhappily, "Stay still, it's none of our business. Don't ask around, or you'll get us involved." Wang Tianfang curled his lips when he heard this, and said somewhat unhappily, "I'm just curious, it won't matter. Why are you so worried?" "I'm telling the truth." Lu Dafu said. Wang Tianfang wanted to say something else, but Huang Ye spoke up at this moment. "Junior brother Dafu is right. Don't ask about things that have nothing to do with us. Did you hear that? Senior Sister Jie has already said it. Lu Dafu immediately glared at Wang Tianfang and said with pride. Wang Tianfang curled his lips, his face full of dissatisfaction, but he did not say anything more. After all, Huang Jie is still very intimidating. Seeing that there was nothing wrong, Bai Fei also closed his eyes and rested. Chapter 84 Goodbye Wen Xueer. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After a while, footsteps sounded outside the door. The next second, a pleasant sound full of surprise reached Bai Fei's ears. Bai Fei? Bai Fei opened his eyes when he heard the sound, and saw Wen Xueer's pretty face looking at him with a surprised expression. Bai Fei just smiled slightly, stood up, and said to Wen Xueer, Mississippi. You are actually a disciple of the Blood Sword Sect. Wen Xueer's eyes flickered, a faint smile appeared on the corners of her lips, and her tone was full of surprise. Bai Fei nodded slightly and said, That's true. Miss, this is. At this moment, a burly man standing behind Wen Xueer asked with confusion. Uncle Mo, this is the young king I told you before. It was thanks to him that I was able to survive in Xiantian Cemetery, and it was also because of his help that I was able to obtain the thawing grass. Wen Xueer explained to the burly man with a smile on his face. Bai Fei also looked at the burly man, and his heart suddenly froze. What a strong breath. This is at least a master at the 7th or 8th level of Danyuan realm. Bai Fei's soul strength is stronger than that of ordinary warriors, so he is very sensitive to the warrior's breath. Although this burly man did not exude his aura, he stood there as if he were at the center of a storm, extremely terrifying. The burly man was a little surprised when he heard Wen Xueer's words, and then his eyes fell on Bai Fei. After looking at him for a while, he nodded involuntarily, and then a hint of light appeared on his rough face. With a smile on his face, he said to Bai Fei, So that's how it is. Little brother, I really want to thank you for what happened last time. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid the eldest lady really wouldn't be able to come back. When Bai Fei heard this, he just shook his head slightly and said, When there is injustice on the road, draw your sword to help. I believe that if it were other capable warriors who saw the situation at that time, they would not hesitate to help. Bai Fei's words made the burly man smile and shake his head. Little brother, you imagine human nature too beautifully. By the way, I haven't introduced myself yet. My name is Mo Guanshan, and I am the Deputy General of the Lord City Lord. Before Bai Fei could speak, Wang Tianfang's eyes widened and he screamed. Mo Guanshan. Are you Mo Guanshan, the tyrant sort of Shishan? Wang Tianfang's words made Mo Guanshan slightly startled, and then he smiled and said, I really didn't expect that someone would still know my name after all these years. Wang Tianfang suddenly became extremely excited, rushed to Mo Guanshan, and said loudly, How could you not know? You are a swordsman of the generation. I have heard about your deeds since I was a child. I heard that you are a master of swords. He killed 12 evil cultivators at the foot of the Western Mountain, and then walked away with great grace. He inspired countless young people. You are wrong. Hearing Wang Tianfang's words, Mo Guanshan just smiled and shook his head. Ah! What did I say wrong? Wang Tianfang was startled. The ones I killed were not 12 evil cultivators, but 15. Mo Guanshan corrected himself. When Wang Tianfang heard this, he became even more excited. Bai Fei was also a little surprised. Mo Guanshan was actually a celebrity. At that moment, Bai Fei bowed his hands to Mo Guanshan and said, It turns out that your excellency is so prestigious. It's really disrespectful. Hey, don't say that. It's just a false name. It's nothing. Moreover, Shishan Ba Dao has already become a thing of the past. Mo Guanshan waved his hand and chuckled, But who are your classmates? At that moment, Huang Jie said softly, Master Mo, I am Huang Jie from the Blood Sword Sect. Lu Dafu of the Blood Sword Sect. Wang Tianfang of the Blood Sword Sect. Wang Tianfang. Hearing Wang Tianfang's name, Mo Guanshan raised his eyebrows and asked, Young master of the Wang family. Wang Tianfang suddenly became more excited. Master Mo, do you know me? Huh, the young master of the Wang family has been gifted since he was a child. It is said that he has practiced the Wang family's Xianling martial arts to the 4th level at the age of 8. This matter has spread throughout Muyin City. What can I do? Maybe you don't know. How is your father now? Mo Guanshan said with a smile. Thanks to you, the old man is still in good health. Wang Tianfang chuckled and said aloud. When Mo Guanshan heard this, he just smiled faintly, then his eyes fell on Huang Jie and Lu Dafu, and he sighed. It is true that heroes come from young. At this time, when Xueer quickly said, Uncle Mo, don't just stand and talk. Aren't you tired? Mo Guanshan came to his senses and immediately said with a smile, my question, please sit down. Everyone sat down one after another. Mo Guanshan looked at the 4 members of the Blood Sword Sect and said, since you are all here, I believe you should be very clear about the mission entrusted to you by our city lord's palace, right? Bai Fei nodded lightly and said to Mo Guanshan, I know, I am assisting the city lord's mansion to help you kill a group of vicious bandits. We are here today for this mission. From the intelligence we got, we only know that there is a Danyuan realm expert, but we don't know the number of others and their cultivation levels, so we came here to figure it out, and by the way, we also want to listen to how your city lord's mansion arranged it. If it was a month ago, the city lord's mansion could indeed help you, but now, I'm afraid that the city lord's mansion can't help you with this mission. Mo Guanshan heard Bai Fei's words, so he said this. No way. Lord Mo, are you kidding? Wang Tianfang and Lu Dafu both exclaimed, feeling incredible. Even Huang Jie couldn't help but frown. There was no expression on Bai Fei's face, and he remained calm. He asked, Lord Mo, I wonder if you can explain it to us. You must have felt how depressing the atmosphere was when you came into the city lord's mansion, right? Seeing that Bai Fei was still able to remain calm, Mo Guanshan's eyes showed a hint of appreciation, and then he sighed and said to them. Everyone nodded. It is indeed a little unusual. Bai Fei explained. Chapter 85, Can't Do It. You are listening at novelfull.audio. That's because we're about to start a war. Looking at Bai Fei and the others, Mo Guanshan sighed again and gave his reason. What? War? Wang Tianfang's eyes widened and he suddenly stood up from his seat. Is there going to be a war in Muyin City? It's not Muyin City. Mo Guanshan shook his head and said, it's because other cities have problems, so they need our Muyin City to rush to help. It's also because of this. The city lord's manor is currently very stretched, and it's difficult to spare them to cooperate with you to annihilate that group. Fierce bandits. Bai Fei really didn't expect such a thing to happen. However, he did not give up just because he did not have the assistance of the city lord's mansion. He asked, Master Mo, do you have detailed information about this group of vicious bandits? When Mo Guanshan heard this, he was slightly startled and a little surprised. He really didn't expect that Bai Fei would want to ask for information about the murderer after he had already made it so clear. At that moment, Mo Guanshan nodded and said. Of course there is. Mo Guanshan reached forward with his palm, and the storage ring on his finger shone with light, and a scroll appeared in the palm of his hand. He casually handed the scroll to a silver-armored guard beside him, motioning for him to hand it over to Bai Fei, and at the same time said, this group of vicious bandits fled to the vicinity of Muyin City when Jiang Pass was breached. Because Muyin City is originally a very prosperous city, this has created this group of vicious bandits who constantly loot the merchants and people who come and go, and even dare to rob the military's resources. We tried to encircle them, but when these guys saw that the situation was not good, they immediately fled, and the place they fled to was the Black Stone Forest. The environment of the Black Stone Forest is complex and complicated, and it is not suitable for cavalry attacks. If infantry is to be sent to encircle and suppress, the scope of the Black Stone Forest is too wide, and the group of fierce bandits do not know what is going on. They have no idea what is going on in the Black Stone Forest. He is very familiar with it, so the city lord dare not easily order the army to attack the Black Stone Forest, otherwise, he will suffer heavy losses. If it were in the past, there would be no way that these bandits could be allowed to burn, kill, and loot like this. But now that Jiang Pass has been breached, Jiangbei City needs support, and the only one who can get to Jiangbei City the fastest is Muyin City. Therefore, we don't have the extra troops to encircle and suppress that group of vicious bandits, so we can only entrust you to the 4 major sections. For major sects, but when Yi Long heard this, he raised his eyebrows slightly and said loudly, "You mean, the City Lord's Mansion has also entrusted this task to the other 3 major sects? Then they didn't send anyone to solve this task, that there are 5 top forces in Muyin City, apart from the City Lord's Mansion. Among the remaining 4 top forces, the Blood Sword Sect occupies one of them, the remaining 3 top forces are Shenshen Sect, Fenglei Palace and Juesha Sect. In Muyin City, most of the aristocratic family forces are attached to the 5 top forces, thus structuring the entire situation in Muyin City, of course, if we really want to talk about the strongest force. Then there is no doubt that it is the Shenshen Sect. The Shenshen Sect is currently the number 1 force in Muyin City. However, if we want to say that the most powerful person in Muyin City is the City Lord of Muyin City, Wen Huatian, it is precisely because of this that even though the Shenshen Sect is powerful and has a profound foundation, they dare not fall out with Wen Huatian casually. Back to the topic, when Bai Fei asked this question, Mo Guanshan's eyes suddenly turned cold, and at the same time he let out a cold snort. No. Those sects are simply selfish. It sounds nice, but in fact, I don't take this matter to heart at all. Only you, the Blood Sword Sect, have come to accept this task. Mo Guanshan's last words made Bai Fei and the others speechless. At that moment, Bai Fei said nothing more and directly opened the scroll and glanced at the information on it. After reading it, Bai Fei couldn't help but frown, looked up at Mo Guanshan, and asked, "Master Mo, is the information above, is it true?" Mo Guanshan nodded, "It's true." "Master Mo, if you are not joking, then this is indeed something that is difficult for others to do." Bai Fei said lightly. Hearing Bai Fei's words, Wang Tianfang immediately stretched out his palm, took the scroll in Bai Fei's hand, and then scanned the content on it. His face suddenly changed and he couldn't help but exclaimed. 2 in the Dan Yuan realm, 20 in the spirit gathering realm, 30 in the body refining realm. I'll go. Isn't this a joke? The expressions of Huang Jie and Lu Dafu also changed, and they both came closer and looked at the information displayed on the scroll. When they saw clearly the information displayed on the scroll, their expressions changed. Even Huang Jie had a gloomy look on her pretty face, and couldn't help but said, "Master Mo, how can the 4 of us defeat these vicious bandits without the help of the City Lord's Mansion?" "To kill him?" Mo Guanshan smiled helplessly. "What you said is right, but the 4 of you alone are indeed a bit difficult. Maybe, you can go to the sect to bring in reinforcements." After hearing what Mo Guanshan said, Bai Fei and the other 4 were immediately speechless. "Move rescue troops. What kind of reinforcements are you looking for?" "This mission is an assessment mission for the inner disciples of the Blood Sword Sect, which means that only the 4 of them can complete it. Of course, if they ask others for help, it is not impossible, but the problem is, who will volunteer to help? And this is such a dangerous thing, and you may lose your life at any time. Since the City Lord's Mansion entrusted this mission to the Blood Sword Sect, it must have given the Blood Sword Sect certain benefits. However, this benefit is definitely in contrast to the service. What treatment the City Lord's Mansion gave, the Blood Sword Sect gave the same service. The Blood Sword Sect set this mission as a 4-person mission, which is enough to explain everything." At this moment, Huang Jie's eyes flickered, and she said directly, "I can't do it. We can't complete this mission. Junior brother Bai Fei, we won't do this mission." That she didn't care about Mo Guanshan. After all, the City Lord's Mansion was at fault in this matter. From this mission, it is clear that the Blood Sword Sect sent disciples to assist the City Lord's Mansion in eliminating the evil bandits. As a result, the Blood Sword Sect now has to eliminate the bandits themselves, and the City Lord's Mansion refuses to provide assistance. Chapter 86, Immature Suggestions. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Such a thing is already a violation of the treaty. From the perspective of the entrustment treaty, there is absolutely no need for Bai Fei and the others to continue with this mission. This is why Mo Guanshan remained silent after hearing Huang Jie's words, because he himself knew that they were in the wrong in this matter. Bai Fei frowned slightly and his eyes flickered, thinking about the feasibility of this matter. It is true that it is impossible for Bai Fei and the four of them to deal with such a large number of bandits, not to mention that among these fierce bandits, there are still 2 Danyuan realms, but what if he could bring in reinforcements? If there were reinforcements, it might be different, of course. If you want people to help you, you can't do it without all the benefits, therefore, how to ask for benefits from others is the most critical issue. After thinking of this, Bai Fei raised his head slightly, looked at Mo Guanshan, and said softly, Master Mo, if we accept this mission, what can you bring to us? Bai Fei's words changed the expressions of Huang Jie, Wang Tianfang and Lu Dafu. Bai Fei, what are you talking about? Wang Tianzhao shouted anxiously at the first moment. Is this mission something we can take on now? Huang Jie was also a little surprised that Bai Fei still wanted to take on this task, but she knew that Bai Fei never did anything he was unsure of, so when he said this, he obviously had his own agenda, so Huang Jie said, let's first listen to what Bai Fei said. When Wang Tianfang heard this, he had no choice but to keep his mouth shut. When Mo Guanshan heard Bai Fei's words, a look of surprise appeared on his rough face. He really didn't expect that Bai Fei would suddenly ask such a question. Of course, Mo Guanshan is not an idiot. He knows what Bai Fei means by saying this. Therefore, Mo Guanshan immediately asked, what do you want? In the beginning, what was your treatment for entrusting our blood sword sect to help you eliminate the vicious bandits? Bai Fei asked very directly. This. When Mo Guanshan heard this, he immediately hesitated, and then said, 10,000 low-grade spiritual stones. Depend on. Mo Guanshan's words made Wang Tianfang unable to hold back his words. Even Huang Jie opened his eyes wide and felt incredible. It was just an ordinary assistance mission, and the Blood Sword sect actually asked the City Lord's mansion for 10,000 low-grade spiritual stones. This is really a big opening for the lion. I know what you're thinking, but it's impossible. At this moment, Mo Guanshan shook his head and said, we can't offer a higher price to the four of you, not to mention what I just said. Muyun City needs to rush to Jiangbei City, and all resources need to be used in this aspect. There is definitely not much that can be achieved. Besides, if we can really come up with it, we have directly entrusted the Blood Sword sect to do it personally from the beginning. Why do we need to entrust the assistance? What Mo Guanshan said is indeed correct. If the City Lord's mansion is really wealthy, wouldn't it be enough to just use a large amount of spirit stones to hire an elder from the Danyuan realm to kill those vicious bandits? Why do you have to do so many tricks? Hearing Mo Guanshan's words, Bai Fei couldn't help but smile and said, I understand what Master Mo means, but I have an immature suggestion. Please listen to it, Master Mo. Bai Fei's words made Mo Guanshan's heart skip a beat. He didn't know why, but he always felt that this boy was holding back something evil. However, since Bai Fei said so, he naturally had to listen carefully. After all, if Bai Fei can really deal with those vicious bandits, it will at least be of great help to Muyun City, not to mention that they no longer need to send troops to guard against the group of ruthless bandits, and the trade channels can also become safer, so that trade between Muyun City and other places can proceed smoothly, and the economy can circulate quickly. Now, because of the group of fierce bandits, many local merchants are now unwilling to leave the city, and foreign merchants are unwilling to come here to do business. This has led to a sluggish economy, which is not conducive to the development of Muyun City, especially at this juncture. Economic circulation is very critical. After all, when the war ends, all kinds of pensions, medical expenses, etc. will have to be paid by the City Lord's palace. After thinking of this, Mo Guanshan said aloud, if you have any suggestions, it doesn't matter. I can take on this task, and I can solve it without the City Lord's palace sending out any soldiers, but... Having said this, Bai Fei paused and continued, I need 30,000 spiritual stones, and in addition, I also need military merit. Military merit. Bai Fei's words made Mo Guanshan startled. That's right. Bai Fei nodded lightly and said, now that the City Lord's palace has no way to come up with our corresponding reward, it will use military merit points to pay off the debt. Military points are nothing to you, right? That's right. Bai Fei's purpose is to gain military merit. Military merit points are a means of promotion reward for the great political dynasty. Military merit points can be used to promote one's official position and can also be used to exchange for various rewards. Now the city lord's mansion cannot come up with the corresponding reward in the first place, so it uses military merit points to pay off the debt. With military merit points, Bai Fei is equivalent to having an official identity, and it will be more convenient to do anything in the future. More importantly, military merit points are universal throughout the Dajing dynasty, so no matter which military camp you are in, you can use your military merit points to make various exchanges. To put it bluntly, it is equivalent to asking Mo Guanshan to give you an official identity. Mo Guanshan heard what Bai Fei said and immediately understood Bai Fei's true meaning, which made his eyes change when he looked at Bai Fei. Mo Guanshan really didn't expect that Bai Fei would be so shrewd. You know, once he, Mo Guanshan, really agreed to Bai Fei, then Bai Fei would be equivalent to having an official identity in Muyun City, so if he caused any trouble in the future, he would directly find the city lord's mansion of Muyun City. It can be said that the lord's mansion of Muyun City has become Bai Fei's umbrella of protection. This reward is much more valuable than paying hundreds of thousands of spirit stones. Chapter 87. Agree. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After thinking of this, Mo Guanshan immediately shook his head and said, "No, absolutely not. Why can't it work?" Bai Fei answered without hesitation. "Master Mo, this is the most cost-effective deal." "Where's the deal?" Bai Fei's words made Mo Guanshan say angrily, "You obviously took a lot of advantage. Okay, let the Lord's mansion of Muyun City be your protective umbrella, and of course you will say it's a good deal." Mo Guanshan really didn't expect that Bai Fei could be so cunning at such a young age. When Bai Fei heard this, he shook his head gently and said, "Master Mo, what you said is wrong." Mo Guanji laughed angrily. "What's wrong?" "Then tell me what's wrong." "Although I do want Master Mo to grant military merit cannot be obtained casually, right? Although these fierce bandits are indeed very powerful, according to the calculation rules of military merit, I believe there should not be many, right? With just a few military merit points, I can only hold the position of a first-class soldier at most. What can a little first-class soldier do? What's more, because of the relationship between these ruthless bandits, Yumiyun City's trade routes have been greatly hindered, so that the economy cannot continue to develop. It's acceptable now, but how long will it take? And those bandits? I'm afraid there weren't that many people last month, right? There are already so many people now, which means that the bandits are still absorbing outsiders and turning them into their own. In the long run, the power of the evil bandits will become stronger and stronger. At that time, if you want to eliminate them, you will probably have to pay a higher price. So Mr. Mo, think about it carefully. In this case, who will take advantage? At the end of the sentence, a very bright smile appeared on Bai Fei's face, which was very sunny. Mo Guanshan fell silent when he heard what Bai Fei said, but at the same time, he was also thinking about the feasibility of this issue. After all, just as Bai Fei said, if the group of vicious bandits are left alone now, they will definitely cause serious trouble in the future. Even if the vicious bandits can be eliminated in the end, they have already caused damage, especially to the most serious economic lifeline. This means that for a long time, it will be impossible for Muyun City's business road to be restored. Possible things: failure to recover would mean a weakening economy. If the economy is weak, Muyun City will naturally not be able to flourish. This is a vicious cycle. Therefore, if Bai Fei can really deal with these vicious bandits, in the long run, it is indeed worth it. After thinking of this, Mo Guanshan looked at Bai Fei and asked, "Do you really have a solution?" When Bai Fei heard this, a faint smile appeared on his face, and he said softly, "Since I have made this suggestion known, I am sure of it." Mo Guanshan stopped talking and said directly to Bai Fei, "Okay. If you really can help us get rid of those vicious bandits, I can agree to your doing so." Hearing Mo Guanshan agreed, the smile on Bai Fei's face became even brighter. "Thank you, Master Mo. If this is the case, then please pay me 50,000 low-grade spiritual stones in advance. After all, I want to recruit troops and I need these spiritual stones." Mo Guanshan replied, it will take some time to gather these spiritual stones. How about I give them to you tomorrow morning at the latest? After hearing Mo Guanshan's words, Bai Fei didn't urge him, but just nodded, of course it's okay. After all, they still need to stay in Muyin City for several days, so there is no problem. In that case, why don't you just stay at the city lord's mansion, and I'll have someone arrange the guest rooms. At this time, when Xueer opened her mouth and wanted to persuade Bai Fei and others to stay. Of course, when Xueer mainly wanted to retain Bai Fei, and she was looking straight at Bai Fei. Wouldn't this be bad? Bai Fei thought for a moment and asked aloud, after all, the city lord's mansion is currently preparing for war, so it would be inappropriate to allow outsiders like them to live there. Of course this has nothing to do with it. What's more, you are also here to help our city lord's mansion. This doesn't matter. When Xueer heard this, she shook her head and said, when Bai Fei heard this, he looked at Huang Jie and the others. They all nodded lightly and did not refuse. When Bai Fei saw this, he smiled at Xueer and said, in that case, then there is Miss Lao. No problem. Xueer immediately smiled happily and said, I'll have someone make arrangements for you right now. Soon, under Xueer's arrangement, they moved into the guest room of the city lord's mansion. Everyone has a single room, and they are not very far from each other, which is convenient. Several people arrived at a stone pavilion in the courtyard and gathered together. Bai Fei looked at the few people and said calmly, I know you have many questions in your mind, so just ask them. Wang Tianfang was the first to be unable to hold back and spoke first. Junior brother Bai Fei, why are you doing what you are doing? Of course it's to complete this assessment task and help everyone get some benefits. Isn't this an obvious thing? When Bai Fei heard this, he couldn't help but smiled and answered. I understand what you mean, but can you really find someone to help us? Otherwise, it will be difficult for the four of us to deal with those vicious bandits. Lu Dafu spoke at this moment. Hearing Lu Dafu's words, Bai Fei smiled and said, the four of us alone can't do it, but aren't there senior brothers Dafu and Tianfang? Ha! Wang Tianfang and Lu Dafu both had doubts on their faces, not understanding what Bai Fei said. Senior brother Tianfang is the young head of the Wang family, so there should be no problem in asking the Wang family to send some people to support him, right? After Bai Fei said this, he looked at Lu Dafu again, smiled and said, Senior brother Dafu, the Lu family in the North District should be your family, right? Wang Tianfang and Lu Dafu both had confused looks on their faces. Soon they reacted, and their eyes when looking at Bai Fei had changed very obviously. Chapter 88 Smart Bai Fei. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Good guy, this Bai Fei actually has his mind set on the family behind them. After Lu Dafu hesitated for a moment, he said, Junior brother Bai Fei, you are right. The Lu family in the North District is indeed my family. But with my status, it is impossible for the Lu family to send many people. Support me. It is indeed like this. Even if I am the young head of the Wang family, it is impossible for the Wang family to send people to support me. After all, this matter has nothing to do with them in the first place. Wang Tianfang also nodded and said in agreement. How come it doesn't matter? Hearing the words of Lu Dafu and Wang Tianfang, Bai Fei shook his head and said, this task is related to whether you can be promoted to inner disciples. If you cannot be promoted to inner disciples, then you will not be able to obtain it. More resources, this is probably impossible for the Wang family and the Lu family to accept, right? After all, you have been in the Blood Sword Sect for so many years, but you have never been promoted to the inner disciples. Although it is for the sake of harvesting wool, now that you have decided to be promoted to the inner disciples, I believe you should have gained something. Got the news? Bai Fei's words made Wang Tianfang and Lu Dafu's eyes change slightly, but they remained silent. When Bai Fei saw this, the smile on his handsome face became even richer. The two senior brothers have stayed in the outer sect for so many years and have never been promoted to inner sect disciples. However, after this outer sect ranking battle ended, they were promoted to inner sect disciples. It's very suspicious to be eager to be promoted to an inner disciple. Based on the current time period, I think you will want to be promoted to inner disciples. probably to prepare for the upcoming Sect martial arts competition, right? Bai Fei's analysis caused Wang Tianfang and Lu Dafu's expressions to change again, and their moods became as turbulent as the stormy sea. Because what Bai Fei said is correct. They had indeed gotten the news, so they thought about being promoted to inner disciples. After all, this time the Sect's martial arts competition is different from before. This made Wang Tianfang and Lu Dafu look at each other, with seriousness in their eyes. Bai Fei is smarter than they thought. Therefore, they did not continue to hide it and spoke one after another. Junior brother Bai Fei, what you said is correct, but even if we go according to what you said, we can't get more support if we go to the house for help. Indeed, even because of this assessment task, it is unlikely that many people in the family will be mobilized to help us. After all, there are many battles among the aristocratic families, not to mention that this time it also involves the war in Jiangbei City, and many aristocratic families are also involved. We need to send people over to support us. After all, this is the city lord's order and no one can disobey it, not even the 4 sections. When Bai Fei heard this, he just nodded and said calmly, I understand what you said, so you should go to your home and explain it as clearly as possible, and I will ask for help as much as you can mobilize. Try to gather a force that can annihilate the vicious bandits. Senior brother Tianfang and senior brother Dafu, if we can really complete this assessment task, in addition to being promoted to inner disciples, we can also become officials of the Dajing dynasty by virtue of our military merits. In this way, even if we have having an official status will be more convenient in many things. I believe you should know that, right? How could Wang Tianfang and Lu Dafu not know what Bai Fei said? It was precisely because they knew that they did not reject Bai Fei's suggestion. I understand what you said. Then let's go back home now and see if we can convince them to help. Wang Tianfang and Lu Dafu said, standing up at the same time. Thank you, 2 senior brothers. After Wang Tianfang and Lu Dafu left, Huang Jie looked at Bai Fei and asked softly, what about me? That when Bai Fei heard this, he was a little surprised and asked, what's wrong with you? Since you have arrangements for Wang Tianfang and Lu Dafu, what about me? Don't you have any arrangements for me? Huang Jie asked softly. Bai Fei smiled and said, of course I have it. What? Senior sister Jie, I want to know, if you go all out, can you deal with opponents in the Danyuan realm? Bai Fei's face became serious and he asked in a deep voice. Huang Jie heard the words, pondered for a moment, and said, I can deal with warriors below the 3rd level of Danyuan realm. That's fine. Bai Fei smiled and said, then when the time comes, you will hold back a dangerous bandit in the Danyuan realm. If you can kill him, that's the best. If it doesn't work, just delay it temporarily. This is your mission. But the intelligence has said that there are 2 vicious bandits in the Danyuan realm. I can only deal with one, so how should I deal with the other one? Huang Jie asked aloud. I have a solution. Bai Fei smiled faintly, very mysteriously. When Huang Jie heard this, he said no more and nodded, I understand. At this time, a maid came over, bowed to Bai Fei, and said softly, Master Bai Fei, my eldest lady, please come over. When Bai Fei heard this, he looked at Huang Jie, who said, go ahead. Good. Bai Fei followed the maid away and came to the entrance of the courtyard. At this time, Wen Xueer was waiting here. Mississippi. Looking at Wen Xueer, Bai Fei whispered. Bai Fei, why do you still call me Miss? It's too formal, just call me by my name, that Wen Xueer said with an unhappy expression on her pretty face. This isn't good. Bai Fei hesitated. Why is it bad? Don't you consider me a friend? Wen Xueer pouted and looked very aggrieved. Bai Fei heard this, and a helpless expression appeared on his face. He could only smile and say, then I will call you Xiao. When Wen Xueer heard this, a faint smile suddenly appeared on her pretty face. Hee. Bai Fei, are you free now? I plan to go out for a while, what's wrong? Bai Fei looked at Wen Xueer and asked. It's a rare opportunity for us to meet. You haven't been to the city, have you? I want to take you for a good walk, so as to repay you for saving my life last time. When Xueer said this with a look of anticipation in her eyes. Seeing Wen Xueer's anticipation, Bai Fei felt a little embarrassed to refuse. Chapter 89 Goodbye Zhan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. But Bai Fei still had some work to do, so he couldn't accompany Wen Xueer to wander around. At that moment, Bai Fei's face showed a trace of apology, and he said to her, I'm sorry, Xueer, I still have things to deal with, so I'm afraid I can't accompany you. Is that so? When Xueer heard this, and there was a look of loss in her eyes, soon, she asked again, where are you going? Is it convenient for Fong to tell me? I'm going to find Zhan, the young master of the Xiao family. Bai Fei did not hide it and spoke directly, that's right, the rescuer that Bai Fei and Huang Die mentioned was Zhan. Although he and Zhan met in Shantian Cemetery, they have a close relationship. If he can get Zhan's help, then this time's matter should be completed better. Zhan, hearing Bai Fei's words, when Xueer's pretty face showed a look of surprise, you are looking for Zhan. What's wrong? Do you know him? Seeing Wen Xueer's surprised look, Bai Fei asked in confusion. Of course I know him, he and I are friends. Wen Xueer nodded, are you looking for him? I can take you there. Bai Fei originally wanted to say no, I can go alone, but when Xueer seemed to see through Bai Fei's thoughts, and before Bai Fei could say anything, she continued, you should not know where the Xiao family mansion is. If you look for it by yourself, it will definitely take a lot of effort. It is better for me to take you to find him directly now, which is more convenient. Hearing Wen Xueer's words, Bai Fei thought it made sense, so he nodded gently to her, then trouble you. Wen Xueer was immediately delighted when she heard the words, and replied with a smile, you're welcome. So, when Xueer and Bai Fei got on a carriage and went to the Xiao family mansion, in the carriage, Bai Fei closed his eyes and rested his mind. But he always felt as if someone was looking at him, which made him feel uncomfortable, so, Bai Fei couldn't help but say, Xueer, why are you looking at me so straight? You make me uncomfortable. When Xueer, who had been staring at Bai Fei, was exposed by the former's words. She turned her head away quickly. At the same time, a blush appeared on her pretty face. She said in a panic, no, don't talk nonsense, who is looking at you? Really? Hearing Wen Xueer's words, Bai Fei just smiled lightly and said, it doesn't matter, just look at it. I know I'm handsome. It's normal for you to be fascinated by my handsome face. Wen Xueer couldn't help but roll her eyes when she heard it, and said unhappily, don't be so narcissistic, okay. Bai Fei still kept a faint smile and didn't refute, he was telling the truth. Soon, the carriage stopped. Bai Fei and Wen Xueer got off the carriage and saw the Xiao family mansion in front of them. The guards at the gate of the Xiao family mansion saw that it was the carriage of the city lord's mansion, and their faces changed. At that moment, a guard quickly stepped on the steps and came to them, bowed to Bai Fei and Wen Xueer, and said, I wonder who you two are. I am Wen Xueer, let Zhan come out to see me. Wen Xueer introduced herself and said this. When the guard heard this, his face suddenly changed, the daughter of the city lord's mansion. How could she come to the Xiao family? The guard bowed and said, it turned out to be the eldest lady. Please wait a moment. Someone has been sent to invite the young master. Please go into the mansion first and wait. Wen Xueer heard this, but she did not refuse and nodded. The guard immediately welcomed Wen Xueer and Bai Fei into the Xiao family mansion. The Xiao family mansion was indeed very luxurious. Bai Fei saw the flower beds, springs, and rockery that he had not seen in the city lord's mansion. I have to say, this is a normal aristocratic family mansion. The city lord's mansion, what the hell is that? Bai Fei couldn't help but complain in his heart. Wen Xueer and Bai Fei were welcomed into the living room by the guards, waiting for Zhan's arrival. Wen Xueer looked at Bai Fei and whispered, Bai Fei, are you going to ask Zhan for help? Bai Fei nodded and replied, that's right. The Xiao family is indeed a good choice, but I feel a little bit worried. Wen Xueer whispered, the situation of the Xiao family has not been very optimistic recently. They have been suppressed by the Zhou family. They didn't even send anyone to join the aristocratic family coalition. I'm afraid it will be difficult to succeed. Is the current situation of the Xiao family so serious, that when Xueer's answer surprised by Fei, at this time, a loud voice came from outside. When Xueer, why did you suddenly come to see me? That was Xiao Zhan's voice. The voice came before the person arrived. However, when Xiao Zhan walked into the living room, he found that in addition to Wen Xueer, there was another person he was familiar with. Bai Fei? Xiao Zhan opened his eyes wide, his face full of disbelief, and he even rubbed his eyes, thinking that he had seen it wrong. When he found out for sure that what he saw was not an illusion, Xiao Zhan's face showed surprise. It's really you, Bai Fei. Brother Xiao, we meet again. When Bai Fei heard this, he stood up from his chair with a smile and said to him. Good brother. Xiao Zhan quickly stepped forward, gave Bai Fei a big hug, and said with a hearty laugh, I really didn't expect that I could see you here. I told you to come to me as soon as possible. I can take you around Muyin City. You are finally here. I came to you this time because I have something important to discuss with you. Hearing Xiao Zhan's words, Bai Fei smiled helplessly, and then said something. Tell me, what's going on? Xiao Zhan heard this and opened his mouth to ask. Do you know about the fierce bandits? Looking at Xiao Zhan, Bai Fei said very directly, I was ordered by the Sect to exterminate the bandits, but I am short of manpower, so I came to ask you to see if you can help. Hearing Bai Fei's words, Xiao Zhan was slightly startled, and his brows furrowed in an instant. After frowning for a moment, he said very cheerfully, no problem, I'll lend you as much as you need. Hearing Xiao Zhan's words, Bai Fei was stunned for a moment. Obviously, Xiao Zhan's answer was unexpected. After all, he had already heard what Wen Xueer said just now. Chapter 90, Young Master of the Divine Spirit Sect. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The current situation of the Xiao family is not optimistic. Since it is not optimistic, where can he find people to lend himself? Moreover, Bai Fei can see very clearly that Xiao Zhan is now more haggard than the last time he met him. It is obvious that he has not slept well during this period. Therefore, after hearing what Xiao Zhan said, Bai Fei's face became very strange. He looked at Xiao Zhan and asked, Brother Xiao, are you sure? Can the Xiao family still lend people now? I want to borrow a lot. Hearing this, Xiao Zhan just smiled and said, don't worry. As long as I have it, I will definitely find it for you. What if there is nothing? Bai Fei asked again. I have to change it for you even if there is nothing. Xiao Zhan smiled and said, who told you to be my brother? And you are my lifesaver. If you need my help, of course I have to help. Hearing Xiao Zhan's words, whether it was sincere or false, Bai Fei was moved. At that moment, Bai Fei shook his head gently and said, Brother Xiao, I'm very happy that you can say that, but the current situation of the Xiao family is probably not optimistic, right? When Xiao Zhan heard this, an awkward smile appeared on his face. He scratched the back of his head and replied, you found out. Although the situation of the Xiao family is not very good, it can still hold on for a while, so just tell me, I can definitely help you arrange it properly. Bai Fei could see that Xiao Zhan was very sincere, so after pondering for a while, he said to him, the group of fierce bandits we have to deal with includes 20 in the gathering spirit realm, 30 in the refining body realm, and 2 in the Dan Yuan realm. The 2 Dan Yuan realm can be ignored for the time being, because there are others who can deal with them. As for the gathering spirit realm and the refining body realm, you need to help mobilize some to help. With Bai Fei's own strength, it is not a big problem to fight against a fierce bandit in the Dan Yuan realm. The other Dan Yuan realm will be dealt with by Huang Jie, then the remaining fierce bandits are the gathering spirit realm and the refining body realm. With the strength of Wang Tianfang and Lu Dafu, they should be able to fight 1 against 2, or even 3, but even so, there are still more than a dozen fierce bandits in the gathering spirit realm, so some warriors in the gathering spirit realm must help. Hearing Bai Fei's words, Xiao Zhan nodded and said, no problem, let me solve this matter. Just do your best. Hearing Xiao Zhan's words, Bai Fei said, I also asked people from other families. Xiao Zhan didn't say much after hearing this. After another conversation, Bai Fei, and when Xueer left the Xiao family mansion. After leaving the Xiao family mansion, the two sat in the carriage and remained silent. The atmosphere became a little depressing. Bai Fei really didn't expect that things would turn out like this. He originally wanted Xiao Zhan to help, so that Xiao Zhan could have a good relationship with the city lord's mansion. Unexpectedly, the Xiao family is now in a difficult situation, so Bai Fei felt that there was probably no hope for Xiao Zhan. Even if there was, there wouldn't be too many people coming and going. After thinking about this, Bai Fei sighed in his heart. It seems that it's not possible to rely on the Xiao family. It seems that I have to find a chance to go to Xiantian Cemetery. Bai Fei knew very well that now he could only seize the time and use the map system to complete tasks so that he could upgrade to the Gathering Spirit Realm as soon as possible. Only by upgrading to the Gathering Spirit Realm could he complete the inner door mission smoothly this time. At this moment, the carriage suddenly stopped. Then, there was a noise outside. Seeing this, Bai Fei frowned and felt confused. Who dared to intercept the carriage of the city lord's mansion? Is he going to die? When Xueer was also a little surprised. She said to Bai Fei, "Stay here first, I'll go out and see what's going on." Bai Fei didn't say much after hearing this, but just nodded. After all, things like this naturally have to be handled by Xueer. When Xueer walked out of the carriage and saw several people stopping her, they were wearing the same red robes with gilded stripes. The leader was wearing a particularly gorgeous red robe and a dragon helmet on his head. With his handsome face, he looked majestic and outstanding. Seeing him appear, when Xueer's pretty face showed a touch of surprise. Sima Tianyan, but the handsome man smiled faintly when he saw Xueer appear, and said, "Xueer, we haven't seen each other for a long time." After saying this, he leaned towards Xueer and even stretched out his hand to touch her face. Xueer immediately stepped back, avoiding the handsome man's palm. Disgust appeared in her beautiful eyes, and her tone became very cold as she said, "I wonder what the young master of the Xinling sect is doing here." That it turned out that this handsome man was the young master of the Xinling sect, Sima Tianyan. Sima Tianyan couldn't help but smile slightly when he heard Xueer's words, and said softly, "Xueer, didn't we make an appointment to go to the theater today? How did you forget?" That Xueer frowned slightly and said in a cold voice, "Sima Tianyan, that's just what you said. I never promised to go to the theater with you. Please get out of the way, we want to go back." "Xueer, don't be so heartless. It's only happened once. Just follow me and go watch the show. After all, there is such a big show today. It would be a pity not to watch it." Sima Tianyan said with a smile, and then approached Xueer again. Xueer's expression changed, and just when she was about to say something, a figure shot out from the carriage and landed in front of Xueer, blocking Sima Tianyan. "She already said she doesn't want to go to the theater with you. Don't you understand human language?" Bai Fei's eyes were cold and he said indifferently. Bai Fei's appearance made Sima Tianyan startled, especially when he saw Bai Fei coming out of the carriage. His eyes suddenly became gloomy, because he saw Bai Fei's clothes. Bastard of the Blood Sword Sect. That when Sima Tianyan saw this, he immediately said in a cold voice, "What kind of trash are you? How can you be qualified to talk to this sect?" Roll. Following the sound of this sound, Sima Tianyan flicked his palm and moved his sleeves.